2026, year of the fire horse. In Chinese astrology, of course, that doesn't start the January 1st. It starts mid-Feb, 16th or 17th of February. This year is Chinese New Year, but we can start to feel this energy come in. In reality, we're always in a transition period, and we are right now in a very important portal of transition, which is the 12 nights, which lasts until the epiphany, the 6th of January. And this traditionally is a window of time outside of time and space. What it means is that we're literally in the womb of the mother. And that is a space that is highly fertile where a lot of things are possible. So if we can, the suggestion is to not fill our all those days with activities and social events. And of course, a lot of us have many things that we're attending during these days, but also to create real pockets of time and space for ourselves, pockets of silence, because it's a time where we really are very attuned to our intuition, to our inner voice, and to our higher self. So to receive whatever it is that we need to receive to inform our actions in the new year as well. Keywords of this coming year are action, creativity, propulsion, and light. It's a very strong year of creation. Very different than the year that we're coming out of, which is the year of the snake. The year of the snake was much of it was an inner process of clearing our energy channels, clearing our bodies of residue of old experiences, of wounding, breaking open those limiting patterns within ourselves and literally shedding old skins, not just one, but we were shedding the whole year, all those patterns that didn't correspond to our new self, our new shape of self that has been forming over this last 9 year cycle. So as we're stepping into that new shape, we're slowly moving out of this cycle of transformation, and we can start to take action really from a new state of being. The energies of last year were the year of the hermit. The number 7 corresponds, the number 9 corresponds to the hermit in the tarot. A lot of us, many of us felt the need to be more alone, to withdraw, to have time to ourselves, to reconnect to our sovereignty, to be able to make decisions and feel into what it was that we wanted to create, the direction that we want to take in life without being influenced by other people. The shadow side of that might have been that we were a little bit isolated or that we isolated ourselves from others. So next year is more a social year. It's a year of collaboration, it's a year of creation, and it's also a year of community with the energy of the fire and the energy of the horse. A lot of people experienced loss of faith or a revision of faith. So a lot of people have completely changed their belief system. So these patterns that we've broken ourselves out of and the shedding of the skins, a lot of that was on the level of our belief system. A lot of our beliefs have changed or just radically fallen apart to make space for something new. And it's something that is definitely present on a collective level as well. The shadow side of that is that there is also a growth of dogmatism in the world. We have seen this definitely last year. And this is something that will continue. Um, why is this? Because people are losing their bearings. The things we were sure of, our certainties, our sense of security is falling away because our world is changing so radically, that many people are looking for outside external sources of authority to tell them exactly what they need to do to be safe. And of course, a lot of religious structures or dogmatic institutions are profiting from that. So that is something that will also increase in the coming years. But this year was very strongly present in the energy. The guides that I talked about in January this year that were present for the energy of this year were Horus and Sobek. In the ancient Egyptian mythology, Horus is the falcon god. He is the illuminated self, the higher self, the self that is in non-duality, that has in a way already ascended. And Sobek is the crocodile god. He is the god of our fears, of our limitations, of those inner voices and inner structures that are keeping us small and that are keeping us within the bounds of what we know. And this whole year has really confronted us with some deep held fears, some of which we might not have been conscious of before this year, so that we can free ourselves of that and in this new cycle really pursue our passion, pursue our joy, also pursue our dharma, our life's mission, our soul's mission, without being held back by our fears. So there was this contradiction almost, or this inner struggle a little bit during this whole year between our higher self and our fears, our need for security and our need for change. That will change. That's a dynamic that will shift as we're much more going into an energy of optimism and an energy of action and change. The guides that accompanied this whole year are guides and energies that allowed us to go into the depths. And so, of course, these energies and these guides and these archetypes are still present with us as we are in this in-between period until the Epiphany, the 6th of January, but also further than that until Imbolc, which is the 1st, 2nd of February, which is the real rebirth of the light. And I'd say almost through to the spring equinox, which is end of March, the 20th, 21st, 22nd of March. So we're in the in-between. A little bit of these energies will accompany us still as we move into the energies of the new year. The energies of this very exciting, promising new year then. The year of the awakened light body, the year of the fire horse. And I have heard some people say that astrologically, fire is the dominant element for the next 20 years. So this is something that's important because fire is the element of alchemy, of transformation. It can also be an energy of destruction if it comes from anger, if it comes from a need to forcibly change things, or if it is coming from the ego instead of the heart. So that's true for us individually, and it's also true for us as a collective. But it is an energy of change. It is an energy of transformation, and actually a lot of prophecies. And the apocalypse is one of those prophetic texts that talks about it, say that the shift or the transformation of our world will happen through fire. I don't believe that that's a physical fire. I believe it's a spiritual fire. I believe it's the light of the spiritual sun and the fire of the Holy Spirit that is transforming our world and us from within. And because we are transforming, our world is transforming. The energies that this year brings are the energy of freedom, passion, creativity, courage, charisma, and travel. Those are energies associated with the fire horse. What it means is that we will be more bold and more courageous in pursuing our freedom in our work situations, in our relationships, in our creative endeavors. It is a year to take some risks, uh, to be a little bit bolder as we create and as we put in place some of the projects that we care about. Um, Generally, it means radical changes in life circumstances, but in opposition to last year, where if we had some changes, many of them were a little bit painful because the changes we faced this year were breaking away from the old, from the past, of letting go of relationships and situations that no longer suited us. These new changes are positive changes. They are allowing us to go pursue our passion in the world. There's an extreme need for freedom and truth on a personal level and on a collective level. So it becomes almost unbearable if someone tries to limit our freedom of expression or our freedom of being. And we will definitely also see the effects of that on a collective societal level. Um, it's the year of the awakening of the heart. This fire of the horse is also the fire of the heart, of compassion, of um, justice, of social justice, and spirituality. It's a spiritual fire, it's the activation of the light body. And I believe that what is in the potential of this year, and definitely in this new era that we've stepped into, for me, this is really the start of the age of Aquarius, is the potential for mass awakenings. I believe a lot of people who are not necessarily on a spiritual path will suddenly have flashes of awakening or realizations or change their belief system. The shadow of the fire horse, of course, is volatility. It's a fiery, volatile energy that needs freedom. Um, and the need for freedom can be so overwhelming and so electric that we break ourselves free violently from some situations. So that's something to look out for, that we don't do that. It's not reactivity, but it's action aligned with the heart that we're looking for this year, and or disconnected impulsiveness. Our need for newness and our need for adventure is very big this year. The thing to watch out for is that we don't say yes to every invitation that comes our way, every invitation that life sends us or that other people send us. But to really ask ourselves, okay, that invitation that I receive from life or from another person, is it aligned with my dharma? Is it aligned with my passion? Does it contribute to nourishing and fueling my passion? Or is it an escape? Not that we can't have any fun without purpose, but mainly we should be looking for activities that really support our dharma as well. Because it's a big year, we can really create big magic and invite in a lot of success with this energy of the fire horse. The mythologies that really illustrate very well the energy of this year, connected, of course, to the energy of the horse, are Krishna and Arjuna in the Hindu tradition. So this is an image of Arjuna, who's a warrior on this chariot, and the chariot is being led and guided by Krishna, so by a heart energy. The story behind this, to really summarize the myth, is that there was a war between the forces of darkness and the forces of light, in which Arjuna was a fighter for the forces of good and the forces of light. And at a certain point during this battle, he was discouraged because he started noticing that a lot of his family members and a lot of his friends and even some of his teachers were battling for the opposing side. So he was discouraged and he didn't want to continue. So Krishna went to him and to help him steer his chariot, but also to advise him. And what he offered him, what he gave him, was the wisdom that is contained today in the Bhagavad Gita. What he shared with him was the importance of dharma, the workings of karma, and the importance of bhakti, devotion. Basically, what Krishna taught Arjuna was that he shouldn't be discouraged or limited by the circumstances that he was facing in his physical reality, because the divine reality is infinite and infinitely bigger, and that he had to play his part in what was playing out, and that he had to be true to his dharma and not allow himself to be held back by the circumstances of his life. He explains that the soul is eternal and that he should fulfill his duty without attachment to results. So that is very much the invitation of this year of the fire horse. So Krishna in this myth represents the soul, or the divine self, that is meant to lead and guide the lesser self or the lower self, which is the ego. Symbolizes that the soul guides us through life's challenges. The chariot is the human body, but also the body of light. We will talk more about this in a little bit. And the horses in the Hindu mythology are the senses, but they are also our actions in the world. Everything that allows us to move forward in the world, to create movement, to create action, our creative potential, our vital energy. So how do we use all of that potential, all of that life force that we have? It is steered ideally by our soul, and our ego self, our little self or our physical self, follows that movement, but very much collaborates in it. We align our own free will to our divine will, ideally. The other myth or mythical creature that accompanies the energy of this year is Pegasus. Pegasus, also a horse, a winged horse, a very alchemical symbol. Pegasus was born from a drop of Medusa's blood when she was beheaded and killed by Perseus. So Medusa originally is the mother goddess. She is the divine feminine contained within all matter, within the whole of our physical reality and our physical world, but she's also a representation of the Earth Mother. At some point, humanity moved away from the Earth Mother, and she was demonized and cast aside and literally had to go and live in a cave. Um, and when she was killed by Perseus, two children were born from her drops of blood. So, what that means is that her legacy continued on. And in a way, it's also an alchemical tale of matter being purified and the spirit being freed from the material form. Um, Also, a representation of the body of light. Pegasus, his name means source or spring. It means to spring forth, but it's also a spring of water, meaning that we can find divine inspiration, creative genius when we are close to bodies of water or springs of water. But it's also our connection to source and to the eternal wellspring of divine light and divine energy. The energy that characterizes Pegasus is freedom. He cannot be tamed. Like a horse is a wild and free being and free animal. The underlying message of that is that nothing can be eradicated and nothing can be killed. Everything lives on in a certain form, like Medusa's consciousness lived on in her children, one of them being Pegasus. Um, and that spirituality cannot serve the ego. During the mythical life of Pegasus, many men and heroes have tried to tame Pegasus, and this wasn't possible because he was a free being. Another message from this story is that God cannot be found through dogma. God consciousness cannot be freed from within following a dogmatic structure because the freeing of the God consciousness within and of the light body needs us to be able to expand and to be free with our spiritual boundaries and not restricted. And the last mythical animal or archetype, of course, that accompanies this year is the unicorn. This image of the unicorn is from the famous medieval tapestries of the Lady and the Unicorn that are in the Cluny Medieval Museum in Paris. If you want to see them, they really talk about the transcendence of the senses. And this is the last tapestry, or the last one in the series, where the lady is united with the unicorn. The unicorn represents virginity in the sense of purity of the soul and spiritual purity, but is also in Christian mysticism a symbol for Christ. Christ, because the Christic self or the Christ self represents the purified being and the purified body. The unicorn has certain powers in mythology. Its horn can purify water, neutralize poison, which means that it becomes an agent of healing. It brings matter back to its state of harmony, to its source frequency. It also means that a person who has freed their light body and attained a state of realization, of self-realization, is someone who becomes a medicine not only for themselves, but also for others and also for this world. The properties of the unicorn are freedom, peace, and independence. So those are the energies that accompany us as well in this new year. And another interesting fact about the unicorn is that it's one of the symbols of Scotland. The Scottish crown chose the unicorn as a symbol of royalty in the 12th century. Of course, this date is interesting because we know that the 12th century was the start of the era of the Templar Knights. And the Scottish crown at that point had very close connections with the Templar Knights that were very present in Scotland. So we can ask ourselves if it was a connection to the Christ mythos and the Christ message and ministry that Scotland wanted to keep, or as many historians believe today, and that is maybe also part of it, if they wanted to show that they had moral superiority over England, their rival. Probably a bit of both. The Merkaba finally is the geometry or the symbol that accompanies this new year, because it represents the chariot of lights, the body of lights. For me, the energy of the fire horse is the energy of the body of light, is the energy of the chariot of light. It is showing us that this chariot of light, this vehicle of light, is activating, and that it is becoming more and more to the forefront of our consciousness, that it is becoming a physical reality in our world. The word Merkaba comes from Hebrew, meaning light and light of the spirit in the body. So it is our whole being that becomes the vehicle of the spirit or the body of light. In Jewish mysticism, the Merkaba is connected to the vision of the prophet Ezekiel, where it represents a celestial vehicle as a means of achieving closeness to God. So the what is specific about this vision of the light body, and we will see different visions of the light body in a moment, according to different traditions, is that not only is it a state of being, it also becomes a vehicle and a way to access God consciousness. So sometimes it is seen or visualized a little bit like a flying saucer or a UFO that we can step into and then fly off to dimensions that are closer to God. In reality, of course, all of this is happening on the level of our consciousness, but it is a little bit what it does. When we activate this structure or this geometry, in a way, we come closer to God consciousness, and we can astral travel as well with this vehicle. We open different dimensional spaces by opening this potential of light within, basically. And a lot of people have witnessed or felt, perceived, or seen this structure in Stonehenge in England. I have to, I feel that Stonehenge is very connected to the geometry of the Merkaba. The numerology of this year connects us to, because it's a number 1 year, to the energy of the magician. The magician indicates new beginnings, flourishing creativity, skill, and increased self-confidence. It encourages action, initiative, and the use of one's talents to shape one's future. It is very positive. Um, it means that it's a year of innovation, a lot of innovation, a lot of inventions. Um, I believe that we will see some very interesting advancements on a scientific level, also in the spiritual realms. A lot of things are becoming possible and a lot of things are becoming visible. So, what we shouldn't do is stick to what we already know. Those of us who will thrive in this new year are those of us who dare to take or create new avenues of expression, new avenues of creativity, new avenues of expressing our connection to spirit and to the divine as well. So it's believing in the magic as well. We're really entering into the realm of all possibilities and the era of magic. So those of us who believe that magic is real are the ones who will be able to play with those energies and to really start physically manifesting and creating the reality that we believe to be true. The second energy, um, because we're not only in a number 1 year, we're also in a number 10 year, is the energy of the zero, the fool, which means also new beginnings, but more as in spontaneity, travel, new projects, life changes, intense romantic encounters for some is the energy that accompanies the fool. Um, Mostly it's the energy of adventure. It's the energy of courage. It's the energy of daring to do new things, daring to express ourselves in new ways and show up in new ways in our life. Pushing the boundaries as well, both energies. The magician and the fool, very much energies of coloring outside of the lines and pushing the boundaries of our own reality and our collective reality. And then the number 10 card, of course, is the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is the wheel of life that turns. A new cycle of change, of dynamic, a breath of air. Um, all of this feels like there is more possibility, more playfulness, more lightness of being as well, more opportunity for success and for creation, for inventivity as well. Um, it's also the completion of a cycle. And in Jewish mysticism, in the Kabbalah, the number 10 corresponds to Malkut, which is the lowest of the Sephirots, corresponding to our material reality. I feel that what this connects us to is that we will start to see the changes in our material world, in our physical world, of everything that has been shifting in our belief system uh, over this past cycle of 9 years. So, harvesting some of the real life physical fruits of this whole cycle of collective transformation that we've been journeying through over these past 9 years. And the Wheel of Fortune reflects the Hermetic principle as above, so below. Again, for me, this is that our physical reality will start to reflect some of the spiritual and some of the more esoteric truths that some of us and more of us have been adhering to for many years. Which brings us to the activation of the light body, which is something that has been happening, of course, that is not new. What is new for me is that it becomes available to a large number of people in our world today, and in a way that we are starting to understand that this is where evolution is taking us, and that in a way, this process is inevitable, that it is unavoidable. In the past, some masters some spiritual masters have achieved the awakening of the light body. One of those people, of course, was Yeshua. So this painting is the Salvator Mundi painting, so the Savior of the World, translated by Leonardo da Vinci. A very intriguing and controversial painting, the most expensive painting sold in the history of humanity for $450 million. A lot of people feel very connected to this painting because they feel that there's a hidden, deeper esoteric wisdom that is contained within this painting. We know that Leonardo da Vinci was an initiate, that he had certain a certain body of wisdom or information about the true ministry and possibly also the descendants of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. What is controversial about this painting is that many people believe that it's been restored many times, that it might not have originally been Yeshua, but a woman that was painted underneath. That, of course, is very debatable. But the other thing, of course, that is visible and that has always been there is the sphere in his left hand, which was thought to have been a crystal ball. However, Leonardo da Vinci was an expert on mirror effects, on proportion, and he would have absolutely have known that his hands would appear different if it were reflected through a crystal ball. So many people nowadays, and especially spiritual scholars, believe that this is a philosopher's stone, that this is proof of the activation of the light body, or as the Buddhist tradition calls it, a Shintamani, which is also a magical jewel, a spiritual jewel, the philosopher's stone, a seed of light signifying the state of self-realization of the person holding that sphere. I have come to call this light activation or the activation of the light body the living light, because for me it is alive. It is sentient. It has a consciousness. It is part of the fabric of the whole of reality. It is part of us. We have this light within our bodies, within our cells, within our being, and at the same time, we are receiving this light. So it's coming from outside of us and it's coming from inside of us. It's being freed from inside of us. And I've always perceived these light particles and felt them. What is different is that they are becoming super visible in our world. So that there's really a shift in our visible, perceivable reality. These are some examples of these light beings, light particles. That I filmed. So the one on the left is a corridor underneath Hathor's temple in Dendera in Egypt. And these corridors were used for regeneration of the body, but also really uh, energetic um, nourishing of the own light body. And if I start this again, here in the beginning, here is a depiction of what they call, what they've come to call light bulbs, but it's a visual of light body activation and of light technology, possibly also of free energy devices. What all this is leading us to and moving our world towards is the realization that we are beings of an infinite quantity of light and of energy, as is our whole world, our whole universe, and that we can just tap into that source of infinite energy to create anything we want. Of course, aligned with divine will. Um, I don't think you can just use this energy for whatever you want to create. I believe it is conscious and it is sentient, which is why only people with a certain, with a purified body or a purified consciousness can receive this light or steer it, steer the fire horse or steer these light beings in a way that they can co-create with reality. This last one is, of course, Sekhmet, the goddess Sekhmet, the lion goddess, also in Egypt in her little temple. So very alive, very active still as a statue, as a being, as a temple. So in ancient Egypt, the temples were seen as the body of the goddess, and the statues really were seen as the incarnation of the spiritual energy of the god or goddess they represented. They were prayed to as a prolongation of the presence and the energy of the goddess. This statue, for example, would have been prayed to every morning, every evening. She would have been anointed, which is also what explains why thousands of years later, she's still very, very active. And this middle point is my very messy bedroom, uh, just to show you that you don't necessarily have to be in a temple to commune with the living lights or to connect with this light. And then this page is just some examples of being in meditation and freeing these light particles from within and attracting them from without. So what happens for me, it's really like a dance. It's when you free this energy from within, you start to attract it more from outside. And the light from within attracts the light from outside and vice versa. The more you tune into the energy and the lights that are around you, the more it stimulates the light within and it starts to free it as well. And this middle one, of course, is the chalice well. It's a little bit less visible because it's in daytime, but you can see the orbs flashing over the water. So if we go back to Pegasus, the living light that is present at the springs, the light of source, there is really a presence of light beings that is very tangible around sacred springs and water sources. So those are places we can find those beings as well. Different light body traditions to show, of course, that it is present in many mystical spiritual traditions and that it has been there for a long time. And that for a long time, all these traditions and these spiritual masters have been seeding our consciousness and our awareness and our planet and our physical beings with this awareness, with this light technology, so that now we can reactivate it and we can really come back to it. These summaries of these traditions, which are age-old, beautiful, deep mystical traditions, are of course very reductionist in their summary. I just wanted to give a brief overview of these. The first one is the rainbow body in the Buddhist tradition, in Tibetan Buddhism, which is achieved through Rigpa, which is non-attachment to form or pure awareness, a stable non-dual presence, which means a continual state of non-duality, not just connecting to that state in meditation or in certain practices, but really being in that state of non-duality all the time. And dissolution of karmic winds and connecting to the nature of compassion. Karmic winds, we can translate that as or compare it to, in the tradition of Tantra and of Sri Kaleshwar, the winds would be the energy of desire, so overcoming the energy of desire. Or in the Christian mystical tradition, it would be purifying the vehicle and the body of sin. Sin not being an evil energy or an evil behavior, but an energy and a dynamic that can misalign us or deviate us from the truth of our being. The diamond Vajra body in Tantric Buddhism, that is attained in that tradition through the union of Shiva and Shakti, tantric practices that unite the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the yin and yang energies within. What is necessary to achieve that prior to that is freeing our energy channels through movement, through Kundalini yoga practices, meditation, tantric practices, anything that moves the stagnant energy from our energy channel so that it can move through us freely. And Jivan Mukti, which is realization in daily life, which means coherence also. Coherence between our spiritual practices and what we practice in our daily lives. In Taoism, this light body is called Yang Shen. The body of light is formed during life and continues after death. This, you can look into this further. It's a very specific process and tradition where first we cultivate what they call an immortal embryo, which is not a baby, but it's like a seed of light that is formed through very specific meditations and breath practices in the just under the navel point. So what we could call the womb chakra. And that seed is then cultivated and that seed is nourished until it is ready to move up to the heart chakra, and from there seed the whole body and envelop the whole body in that sphere of light. In Christian mysticism, we would call it the Christ body or the Christ Magdalene body, the resurrection of the body of light from within, implying the death of the small self or the egoic self in order to integrate the divine self. So a symbolical crucifixion of the limited self, the awakening of the heart, the redemption from sin, meaning alignment of the self to divine truth and to our divine self, and non-separation. And our two last traditions, but it's not the only traditions, of course, that speak about this. These are just the more prevalent ones. Alchemy and the Hermetic way, the forming of the philosopher's stone, the purification of matter back into light, also a process that happens within the human being and within the human body, means and implies being able to identify and transform the heavy parts of the self or the unrefined parts of our consciousness and consciously transforming them, elevating our being, our spirit, and our consciousness back to a state of light and from the individual back to the universal. The Ak is what the light body is called in the Egyptian mysteries. It follows the union of the Kat, the physical body, the Ka, energy body, and the Ba, the soul. And when those all are active and merged together, we step into the Ak, the enlightened light body. What the ancient Egyptians practiced to do this is many things, but amongst others, the main principles were the integration of Mat. Their whole lives were structured according to the laws of Mat, Mat being divine justice, and initiations of death and rebirth to move the being beyond the limitations of the physical life and really to integrate the consciousness of the beyond and the possibilities of the beyond back into the here and now. Many other practices, of course, accompany that, such as purification rituals, activations of the light body within the temple, but those were the main pillars of that practice. This image, I just kept it in because it was already on the slide, but also because I felt it was appropriate, because it is the star of Venus, and the 5 petals of the rose, of course, represent the quintessence being the concept in alchemy and in spiritual tradition that means transcending the world of the 5 senses by mastering each of our senses and connecting us to our capacities that lie beyond the physically and visibly measurable reality. The guides that accompany us in this very exciting journey of creation and of alchemy in this next year are guides that are connected to the energy of the fire horse or the potential that it brings. And the light body activation. We have wisdom keepers and individuals who have attained enlightenment or activated their light bodies. Guides such as Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Buddha, Kuan Yin are energies we can look to for guidance in our own journeys of activating the light body. And these lists are non-exhaustive, of course. There are many, many more that you can connect to and that you're maybe already thinking of. Guides connected to the energy of the horse. Here on Celtic land, Epona would be a good goddess, the horse goddess to connect to stimulate our energy of freedom. Whenever we feel constricted or too contained, we can call upon her to help us create more freedom. Guides who embody the wisdom of the heart, because the light body and the light vehicle is awakened from within the heart. Krishna, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Mary, and guides or energies who embody the essence of fire. Sekhmet, the goddess that we saw in one of the videos as well. Pele, or people who have walked a path of fire, such as Joan of Arc, Teresa of Avila, etc. There are people, those saints, for example, who are change makers. It is a year of change makers, this year of the fire horse, but change that is motivated from really a divine impulse. The archetypes at play in our world this year, but also within ourselves. The revolutionary, people like Che Guevara, Gandhi, Joan of Arc, the desire for justice and the desire to create change is big within ourselves and within our collective society. The archetype of the spiritual guide, Kuan Yin, Mary Magdalene, Gandhi, it is a year to really fully devote ourselves to our spiritual practice. We are super supported during this year. There's really the energy of the Holy Spirit is ever present this year. So we can really push the boundaries of what we are capable of consciously and spiritually this year. The archetype of the alchemist magician, Fulcanelli, Hypatia, Merlin, energies that are savants, that are, yeah, innovative, and maybe a little bit controversial as well. Inventors and creatives, people working with free energy, for example. I think we will see a lot of movement and shift in the domain of energy and how we use energy. People like Nikola Tesla, Buckminster Fuller, historically Galileo, people who work with physics and quantum physics. The archetype of the subversive creative, people who, through their art, push the boundaries of our society, push the marker of our society, and expand our reality. And mythological archetypes that accompany this year are the phoenix, the energy of fire and of rebirth, the unicorn, the centaur, people, mythological creatures that are connected to the energy of fire or the energy of the horse. Key points in activating the light body. And again, this will be very, very fast and very reductive in a way because it's a summary. We will go more into this in this next year, in this coming year. But the main points, of course, is faith, the strength of our faith, our capacity to believe before seeing, to not necessarily have the proof available to us before we take action on what we feel is true within. This is key really to not only awakening our light body, but opening our reality, our physical reality, to the presence of the miraculous. we are moving into the era of the miraculous, but it requires our faith and our belief in it. And in sacred texts, it is named as those with ears to hear and those with eyes to see. What it means is that those of us who are tuned in to the reality of the miraculous, not the fantasy of it, but the knowing, the innate knowing, the inner knowing of what is possible. That is what will allow those things to come into our reality. If we are completely hermetically closed off to the possibility of those things happening for us or in our reality, they won't manifest themselves either. And I've had examples of this. Like, for example, in that corridor in Dendera Temple where I filmed the light beings, um, I was filming them and there were as many as you saw on the video earlier. And an Egyptian guide walked into the corridor after me. I'd been in there for a while with two tourists, and he started explaining what was on the walls, um, and really in a very unconscious way and not tuned into the energy at all. And as they moved closer, I started noticing that the light beings and the light particles started becoming less and less until they got really close and they completely stopped. I kept filming, and once they moved away and they went out of the corridor, they came back again. So, what it means for me, and this is not the only example, another one is where with a friend we were in Egypt, and this friend is very skeptical towards these kinds of things. She was filming on her phone with the same settings as my phone, the exact same angle and the exact same place in the temple. Um, but on her phone, not one light being appeared on the screen. And my screen was filled with this snow of light. And it is something that is, it's a phenomenon that is already known in quantum physics, which is called the effect of the observer. And if you're interested in this, you can look this up, the double slit experiment and how the observer influences the way in which particle moves move in our reality. So this is literal proof of our consciousness directs energy and creates our reality. And this is becoming increasingly true. So, this energy and our power of manifesting our own reality is amplifying and is increasing. And the time that goes between an intention or a thought or a state of being and this intention or this thought or this state of being manifesting as a physical circumstance in our material reality is becoming smaller and smaller. So we have to be very aware of what we put out in our consciousness and through our thoughts this year. Um, the second point is deconstructing our inner rigidity, letting go of certainties and fixed beliefs. The boundaries of our consciousness need to be supple. They need to be able to move and to breathe. They are living membranes. And the more we allow for space for new information or new possibilities to come in, the more those possibilities will come into our reality physically as well. The more we focus or we try to pin down or we try to fix the boundaries of our reality, well, the less they will move as well. Non-separation and non-attachment, we've seen it in all the traditions of the light body activation. Feeling, sensing, allowing ourselves to feel and to learn and know through our feeling instead of moving through the head and moving through the intellect. The intellect is still useful and is still participating, but it is not the driver of our reality. The driving force of our reality is the heart and is our capacity to feel our reality. Awakening of the heart, so heart opening practices, alignment of actions and life choices. So our consciousness is not only enough, is not enough if that's where we stop. The next step is to align our actions and our life choices with what we believe in and what we believe to be true and possible. That creates a field of integrity. And within that field of integrity, there is much greater potential than in a field where only the consciousness and the thought structure has a certain shape, and then our physical reality and our actual choices and actions tell a whole different story. So integrity is important. Deconstruction of the individualistic ego. I believe that because this light is sentient and because it is God consciousness, um, it will only manifest up till a certain point unless we operate with the consciousness that we are part of a greater whole and that we allow spirit to move us through that greater whole, that we put ourselves, our individual selves, at the service of a greater design. Depth work, going into the shadows, into the darkness, working on our root system, working with the energies of the Black Madonna, but also very practically, materially and physically, inviting darkness into our lives. Sitting in stillness, sitting in darkness, allowing for spaces where none of our senses are stimulated or where our senses are stimulated minimally so that we can allow new perceptions to emerge from within. Confronting and overcoming our fears. Why is that so important? Because our fears are the greatest obstacle for external lights to come into our body and to nourish our body. Because fear contracts the being, it contracts the self. And the light of the spirit cannot move through a contracted being or a contracted vessel. So the more we let go of our fears, the better the light can circulate through us. Constant liberation from limitation. So it's an ongoing process. We expand ourselves, we hit a new limit or a new membrane of our reality. Well, then we start pushing against that membrane to expand even further. Having a clear foundation, taking care of our physical body, of our physical health, of our mental and emotional health, to have the inner sense of security that is necessary to be this kind of explorer of the soul and explorer of the spirit. And spiritual practices, of course, that facilitate all the above qualities. Activation of the Magdalene Christ light body. What I mean with this is that those of you who are already engaged on the path of the Magdalene Christ, all those practices that we do, the awakening of the inner mysteries, it is preparing our body and preparing our vessel to receive the light of the spirit and to free the light from within by pushing the boundaries of our existence and transforming our limitations and our fears. Why is this important? Because we could say, "Ooh, this feels like a lot," or "this feels complicated." Because in a way, I believe it is inevitable. I believe we live in the age of the revelation. Apocalypse means revelation, which not only means that truth is becoming visible and that the whole matrix of illusion that we have been living in for hundreds and thousands of years is really ceasing to exist, and something new is being created. But also we are revealed unto ourselves. We are revealed to the truth of our being. The truth of our being is light. The truth of our being is infinite potential. The illusion is the limitation. The illusion is the corruption or the darkness of the self. Um, so that is what we are moving towards. Also, there is more and more spiritual light flooding our planet, literally flooding our planet. This past year, there's been big, big movements of light. And why is this happening? Because not only are we awakening, our planet is awakening. And our planet is calling in this influx of light because it is releasing its light from within as well. And we live in between. We reside in between the planets and the spiritual realms. We live in this space in a way in between dimensions. So all of this is moving through us constantly or bouncing off of us. For us to feel sane and feel good and feel healthy, we need to prepare our bodies to receive this constant movement of these light particles through our being and through our energy field. Um, if we don't, we will receive this as something very violent, and our bodies will start to feel very tired and very depleted from constantly receiving energies that it is not ready to receive, that are too high of an octave for us to integrate. Why else? Because so many traditions, indigenous prophecies or traditions, spiritual, mystical traditions, have foreseen the year 2027 as the year of a great shift. I've spoken to many people in the spiritual realms, or people who are wisdom keepers for their communities, who feel that this is true. Myself, since 15 years, I've been receiving the date of 2027, or the year of 2027, as a year of a great shift. And there is this sense within a lot of people that we are preparing for something without knowing what we are preparing for. But I do believe it is a real shift in our physical reality that will happen, and that we need to be spiritually and energetically prepared to receive this, and to start to create what's next as well. Another reason is because we are many of us are very aware that there's an agenda of artificial intelligence and transhumanism that is being pushed in our world. Um, and this really connects me to the Hopi prophecy of the splitting of the timelines, and of one part of humanity moving more and more towards its true nature and more connected to its humanity and to nature in general, and um, another part of humanity really moving further and further away from their humanity, further and further away from their true nature, but also becoming increasingly inorganic. I believe the light body activation is what will reconnect us to our truth, and it has the capacity to truly awaken us and help us move away from that agenda of the inorganic human or an inorganic reality. There are already holes in space-time, so it's no longer a question of will this happen? It is already happening. Um, Many people are sensing this. I am seeing it and I'm experiencing it, that there are openings in space-time, which for me means that we are moving from one matrix of existence to another matrix of existence. And the old hasn't completely fallen away, the new hasn't taken form yet, which creates these anomalies and this instability in reality, which also creates a lot of potential and a lot of possibility. And is also one of the reasons for me why we are experiencing all this light coming in. Telepathy is beginning to activate massively for many, many human beings. Maybe some of you here have heard about the telepathy tapes or have listened to some episodes of the telepathy tapes, an incredible series of research and interviews of parents of and children with nonverbal autism who were thought to be retarded, not conscious, not intellectual, and not able to, not having any awareness of their circumstance. And actually, some of these parents of these children started noticing that their children were communicating with them telepathically. This has led to a whole body of research. And one of the key things that these children share on replying to the question, why do you choose a path of incarnation, this path of incarnation? Why are you here on the planet? What is your lesson for humanity? What are you bringing to humanity? And one of the things is that we are preparing to activate telepathy on a global level and to access new ways of communicating. So, in a way, their limitation and the restriction of their physical body and their physical capacity to speak or their physical capacity to take care of themselves is forcing us to see beyond the visible and beyond the physical and to accept that there is a whole wide reality of a spiritual reality, where people communicate and where we connect to each other, which is their case. Um, if we apply that to the whole of humanity, if today all of us awakened our telepathic capacities, it would be a disaster. If you could hear the thoughts of every person on the planet or every person you meet, it would be extremely violent. All the thoughts of self-doubts, all the violent thoughts that we have towards ourselves, all the judgment that we hold and carry towards other people. So, one of the things that we are being urged to do is purify ourself, purify our thoughts, so that we can enter into this new evolution of humanity in a way that is softer and that is more harmonious as well. And because the veil is dissipating. Again, this is coming back to the age of revelation. Um, that is an image of Hopi Prophecy Rock that I spoke about just before. Um, in the numerology of next year as well, we are really being invited to combine the numerology of the one and the numerology of the zero. That is, we don't have to focus only on the numerology of the one. Yes, it is a year of new beginnings. It is a year of action, of moving forward. It's like the energy of the sword or the energy of the fiery arrow. So moving forward and really big advancements on our personal path in our creations, but informed from the quantum void, informed from the Divine Mother, coming from our own connection to our soul, to our spirit, and to our divine self. So that is the source where our action is coming from. So not reactivity, but action that is aligned to our divine self. Key points, I forgot to translate this part, to move through the year 2026. Courage, um, dedicate ourselves to our Dharma, align our actions with our feelings, go into our depth, face our shadows, live with the awareness that anything is possible. The more we can train and open our belief system to expand into the realm of the not knowing and be comfortable with that, the bigger our possibilities will be. Cultivate our faith, explore, have adventures. It's really a year to move outside of our comfort zone as well, to invite new things into our lives, attune ourselves to the natural cycles of the light. With that, I also mean that we are still in a period of darkness. So it's not because in 2 days we're the 1st of January that we have to run forward and take action straight away and start making these massive changes in our lives. We are still in the womb of the mother. We are still in the period of darkness. This is the energy that is announcing itself, that is coming, but it is increasingly moving into our lives. So to really attune ourselves to this sequence of the Epiphany, the 6th of January, Imbolc, 1st, 2nd of February, Chinese New Year, 17th of Feb, and then spring equinox, 21st, 22nd of March, and to allow ourselves to increasingly move into a new dynamic as well. And last but not least, the activation of the light body cannot be forced. Knowing all of this, we do our best to do the spiritual practices, but also, and maybe even more, to move the perimeter of our belief system and to align our actions and our physical reality to our belief system. That doesn't mean that automatically our light body will activate. This takes time, and everything has a divine timing. So is also to respect the timing of what is already naturally occurring within us and occurring within our lives. The only suggestion here is to really make space for that and to allow for that to happen, to not resist it.